Welcome everybody, I am 6am Comics, and this is reviewing my 9-year-old's comics. We've got an interesting comic to take a look at this week. A very special issue of Black Widow, which is somewhat of an anomaly in the worldwide universe. A comic which stylistically belongs to the spectacular Black Widow timeline, and yet strangely belongs to the original, more lighthearted timeline from which the character was originally birthed. A darkly toned, yet strangely colorful issue of the Black Widow known as Black Widow Unforgiven, issue number 1. Let's take a look, shall we? Beginning with the overall presentation, we immediately begin to see deviations from the Black Widow issues we've been accustomed to. Gone is the fun, bubbly logo of old, replaced with a more jagged-edged variation of the lettering. In the past, Black Widow comics have always been drawn with a single medium, normally a black or blue pen, with the cover being given a splash of color with either crayons or colored pencils. However, for the first, and for the last time, both the cover and the interiors have been sketched in pencil, outlined in marker, and colored using paint markers. A process which no doubt took a longer amount of time than the standard worldwide comic, which may be a contributing factor in the shorter page count. 5 pages in total, counting the cover. However, for those 5 pages, we're treated to some of the most vibrant and breathtaking work in the worldwide library to date. As far as the art style goes, Unforgiven is an anomaly in the Black Widow series. Visually, it leans predominantly into the grittier realism found in the spectacular line of comics, yet it maintains the cartoonish exaggeration of the original run. It simply lies somewhere in between. When you understand the backstory to this issue, it starts to make sense. At the time of its creation, Spectacular Black Widow hadn't been created yet, and what information we have implies Nolan was aiming to take the Black Widow series in a more grounded, darker direction, while still remaining in the same established universe as the previous 4 comics. This being a number 1 issue implies it would have been a brand new arc in the Black Widow's career. A maturing of our hero, if you will. As stated in a previous video, Unforgiven was initially abandoned early on in favor of the spectacular Black Widow run, which would imply that Nolan felt the grounded tone of the story didn't blend well with the more lighthearted and comedic feel of the original run, and thus, he would have simply started over, recreating his beloved hero as the spectacular Black Widow, possibly looking to revisit this storyline at a later time as part of the new run. But as we all know, Nolan eventually returned to the original timeline, adopting various story elements of the spectacular series and giving Maxwell's backstory a subtle retcon. With this decision, he finally finished Unforgiven number 1 as a means of closure, and moved on with the series as though nothing had changed, never to reference this issue again. Wow, I've been talking a lot about this comic's history, haven't I? Maybe we should just read it. We open with Black Widow leaping over the rooftops of the city. He spots a villain he's clearly familiar with from his airborne state and speaks to himself. Uh-oh, that looks like Deathstalker. But he's just standing there. Not much of a threat, he declares jokingly. Unless that's what he wants me to think. Or maybe he's hiding something. Whenever I try to see what's up, he turns his back on me. That is pretty sketchy. That's basically what my boys do whenever they're up to no good as well. Though I've never seen them do that on a rooftop before. But that doesn't mean that they haven't tried. Drop! Drop! Black Widow soars down behind Deathstalker and yells over to him, "Peekaboo?" Creepy looking dude. Black Widow assesses the situation to find that Deathstalker has taken a captive. Hang on, someone is being held captive here. He looks familiar. We zoom into the captive's face as he makes muffled noises of distress from the rag over his mouth. We see these noises translate below as, "Help me." I would think that's pretty obvious. Black Widow springs into action and grabs the mask of Deathstalker, ripping a portion of it off of his face. This only serves to anger the muscle-bound villain as he shouts,
"You insect! You have really ticked me off. Now this man shall die."
In an act of rage, Deathstalker throws the tied-up man off of the roof.
Die!
No! Instinctively, Black Widow leaps off of the building, second-guessing his decision as he begins to descend. They are pretty high up after all. He grabs some of the dangling rope from the falling victim and realizes he isn't the only one who's been grabbed from midair. Deathstalker, not willing to let the Scarlet Vigilante or the unnamed man escape, grabs Black Widow by the foot and lets out a sinister laugh. I had to jump. However, in a bizarre display of double-jointed flexibility, the restrained leg of Black Widow bends and contorts, kicking Deathstalker in the face, knocking him unconscious as he falls forward off of the roof. As our antagonist releases his grip, our hero's ridiculously bendy foot latches onto the side of the roof, preventing himself and his rescue from falling off as well. In an incredible feat of strength, no pun intended, Black Widow, using only his foot, flips himself back onto the rooftop along with the unnamed victim. In a heroic final panel, Black Widow poses for the readers, and also just kind of forgets there's a tied up and gagged man standing behind him. He seems cool with it though. We're then treated to some informative, critiques, which really helped to break down the creative team behind Worldwide Comics. To which I have just a few critiques. First of all, editor Nolan. Yeah, that's obvious. Second of all, we ain't British, kid. Lastly, whose house is this again? Talk about squatters' rights. We've gone over the visuals to death, but I do want to point out that it's fairly easy to distinguish when this book was abandoned and when it was picked up again. While the art is consistently brilliant, there is a noticeable tonal shift from page 2 to page 3. Up until this point, the issue played out rather seriously with Black Widow's intervention of a kidnapping. However, at the book's conclusion, we're giving a rather comedic showdown in which Black Widow humorously contorts his leg to kick our dumbfounded antagonist before reconfiguring itself to literally grab the side of the building and pull himself up with his toe strength alone. While it's played for laughs, it's also a subtle introduction to Black Widow's super strength from the Spectacular Black Widow run, marking our first instance of the two universes being retconned into one timeline. Also, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is the final appearance of the Nolan Club Comics logo. This comic is literally a mix of everything. While it's already well documented that this book was placed on a hiatus and completed at a later time, there's evidence that implies some story elements may have been disregarded following the pause in production. If we take a look at the cover, Deathstalker's dialogue deviates from the plotline we're given in the book, with him saying,
I give you a choice, Spider. Save the city or save your best friend.
It's something that's easily overlooked as marketing hype trying to draw the reader in to open the book and read. But there's hints to this plot on the second page when Black Widow first sees the bound individual being held captive by Deathstalker. He says something that's easily forgotten amongst the action. He looks familiar. On my first read, I mistook this as Black Widow recognizing Deathstalker, which to me explained why he ripped the villain's mask off. However, when he says this, it immediately focuses on the kidnapped man's face. Combined with the cover dialogue, it stands to reason that there was originally a plotline involving Black Widow being forced to choose between rescuing his friend or the city he watches over. This plays further into the more serious tone this comic originally intended to take on before that vision was realized in the Spectacular series. There's also an interesting piece of artwork which serves as an alternate cover to this comic, featuring Black Widow rescuing the mysterious man from a now burning building. It's quite possible this story originally had a completely different outcome. Sadly, we'll never really know the truth, as Nolan typically doesn't talk much about this issue, making it somewhat of a black sheep in the worldwide universe, despite being one of the most visually stunning books in the library. And there you have it, Black Widow, Unforgiven, issue number 1. Probably one of the highest quality issues in the Black Widow library, and yet it remains one of a kind, with no issue number 2, and no ties to any particular universe. But it's one of my favorites, and because of that, I'm going to give it a rating of Forgiven. I forgive Nolan for not making more like this, because I love this. In any case, what did you think? Would you like to see Nolan return to this version of the universe? Or is its unique, uncopied nature what makes it so special? Let me know in the comments, and I will see you next Monday for another review. Sub it, like it, share it, I'm out!